morning and welcome to Kusile Breakfast Show. Thank you so much for waking up with us. Bangkhulu ukuthi nibona silamhla ekseni sevele ishayile insimbi yesithupha lokusho naqala kwehlelo lethu lomhla ekseni. You can also watch us on YouTube as well as on your phone if you have the Eswatini TV app. Good morning and welcome. So how do you do this morning?
I'm doing great, Lungalela. Just happy to be finally on Friday. Yep. This is the first Friday, like you said, of the month of love. February. It's only the 3rd of February. And I'm excited for the weekend, you know, ngoba I'm not as well versed as Bo Master and Abo Patizo and Abo Fabrice, but Nasiak weekend, the sports that I play, your basketball, your futsal, I get so excited because I get to, you know, converge with my friends. And speaking of sports, it's a special insert. It's not an insert really, it's a special segment. We have 30 minutes of sports. Fabrice Msonera will sit down with us. Local and international transfers. Just internationally, the mid-season transfer window for the Premier League officially closed. 11 GMT time on the 31st of January. It was a lot of transfers, a lot of excitement. It's big money that gets spent during my transfers. Players get transferred, about 18 million, some about 17 million. That's a lot of money. But also, we have local transfers as well. We saw a lot of people crying on social media, especially on Facebook. You speak of the likes of Bolindom Konda, of Bondiswa Dlamini, of Fabrice Mopina. These are big players who got transferred during the transfer window. Fabrice Msonera will join us to unpack more of this and more about the temidlalo ngoba siyathi phela njengoba kungiye imphela sonto miningi ama games latawuba khona so sitawuhlala naye about 7:30.
It's a Friday. Sitaphenza sikhulumisane nalaba soke Eswatini Tourism Authority dokumela ukuthi this week Minister of Tourism Moses Vilakati usukumise ngalokusemthethweni the Love of Month campaign lebitwa ngokuthi #LoveEswatini dokumela ukuthi in 2020 the minister for the first time launched a domestic tourism campaign which was themed Wonder Awaits, Explore It. So like ngalo iminyaka lo yosolo tiko lete kuvakasha kanye nalo libandla le ETA solo likhuthaza noma ke ligqugqutela abantu ukuthi bavakashele tindzawo talapha ekhaya Eswatini in commemoration of the month of love. ETA ne ministry basukumise #LoveEswatini lapho khona bakhuthaza abantu especially those that are couples or in a relationship ukuthi ba explore Eswatini kanti ke sitabe sikhulumisana nabo futhi nge competition labayisukumisile yalabo labathandzana nako ukuthi bayingenele kwenama prizes ke labatawa winner which include kuvakashela tindzawo talapha Eswatini tindzawo tengcebeleka but sikhuluma kabanti leto nalabasuka khona ka ETA lomhla ekseni nga 6:30 kwanyalo. Let's take a break. Start with 19 Asimze sinimukele sikuvusele nawo lesanza kuzivulela kulesikhathi setabuka tindzaba tetfu lomhla ehlelweni. Indvuna yethu amabhizinisi manxeba khomalo yithi tinkampani letita kuleli kutohlanyela timali lidlala indzima lenkulu ekuvuleni imisebenzi kusitakale labede imisebenzi. Indvuna beyikhuluma engwenya lapho bebuka kuchubeka kwenkampani lensha yetinwele iLash Hair. Indvuna iphindze yakhulula iloli ecala lenetinwele letakhiwe kuleli letiya ngaphandle kwelaseSwatini.
Kufika kwale nkampani yatiwa nge-Large Hair lapha eSwatini ukuthi ithelo letinhle tesilo semhlaba inkosi uMswati wesithathu njengoba iyachubeka nekukhulumisana nabahlanyeli imali kusibhedlela lapha eveni ukuthuthuka umnotho welive kuthuthuke nelive laseSwatini. Ingani ngwenyama ukuthi eminyakeni yokuphila yavakashela ilive laseSingapore lapho ifike yakhulumisana nabo-ke bosomabhizinisi lebathembisa ukuthi batawufika lapha eSwatini. Nemambala-ke induna yemabhizinisi Mancoba Khumalo seyikhulule iloli yekuqala lenetinwele etakhiwe lapha eSwatini letakhiwe ngiyo-ke le nkampani i-Large Hair. Induna ithi lokhu kuyancomeka futhi kungumsebenzi lomuhle njengoba iphindze ide namathuba emisebenzi emaswatini lamanenge.
Kwanyalo bantu lesebaqashile bang-150 le itolo bebede imisebenzi nyalo sebanayo. Futhi-ke siyeva kwekuthi kuyawufika March sebafike 300 webantu laba baqashile. Futhi-ke siyeva lokuthi kule minyaka lemibili nalemthathu letako kutawugcina kunebantu lapha isakhula le firm labafika kubo 3000. Kuyasijabulisa kakhulu lokhu. Lokunye-ke lesikujabulela ukuthi bafuna nekuthenga umshini. Lo mshini lotawukwenta kwekuthi le material lekwakhiwa ngaletinwele nayo sale ikhicitwa lakhaya le material bese isendwa kulamanye amave lapha kwakhiwa khona letinwele tabomake.
La maswati lasebentako-ke lapha kanugcina ukuthi athuthukise imindeni yawo phinza athole nalokuya ethunjini kodwa-ke aphinza athole nelwati lesingathi phecelezi ngama-skills ekukhicita tona-ke leti tinwele. Etindzabeni ngengiyani Msibi Ngasimuva Shongwe sisengwenya.
Mabhalanelo omkhulu wetiko letekulima Sydney Simelane uthi imithelela yekugucugucuka kwesimo selitulu iyachubeka nokuthikabeza tekulima eveni kungako balimi bakhuthathwa ukuthi basebenzise letinye tindlela tekulima ukuze live libe nekudla lokwanele.
Itiko letekulima lithe emave emhlaba kufaka ekhatsi live laseSwatini achubeka nekubhekana nemithelela lemibi yekugucugucuka kwesimo selitulu kufaka ekhatsi kushisa lokwecile netimvula letinemandla kulokunye lesekuletha lenye insaye yakutekulima. Mabhalanelo omkhulu etiko letekulima Sydney Simelane uthi inkinga lenkulu lebhekene nelive ukuthi balimi kuseselikhuni ukuthi dayeta tindlela letinye tekulima lokukhonsako waseweluleka bona balimi ngetindlela labangatisebentisa kulesikhathi umhlaba ubhekene nemithelela yegucugucuka kwesimo selitulu kude live libe nekudla lokwanele.
Lesikucela-ke kubalimi ngokuthi abasivumele nasisi nje umbila bonilungela la kule ndzawo awusanilungeli sale sifake mabele. Siyati lokuthi mabele ayakhona wona kubeketelela lesimo sekushisa kangcono kunalombila. Lokunye-ke umuntu langakusho ukuthi in terms of alternatives ukuthi yini lele sikusuggesta ukuthi kungalinywa esikhundleni for instance sembila. Ngokuthi la emasimini ethu la silima khona lombila sitawulima ehlobo. Bese-ke kusebusika lamasimu le ifalo ahlale nje kungendiwa lutho simele ukuthi kuyawuze kuphindze kubuye elihlobo lelinye. La kangwane-ke sine-challenge ye-consumption yesinkwa sesiyadliwa, i-consumption rate iyenyuka and at the same time iyadula i-price yesinkwa because siyam-importa flour. Siyabakhuthaza-ke balimi ngokuthi indzaba ye-wheat nje bebangayifaka bayisebenzise.
Simelane uphinze uthi leli tiko liyachubeka nekuvakashela imimango kweluleka abalimi ngaletinye tindlela tekulima lokukhonsako. Etindzabeni yeSwatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza kunasikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Libandla letekuvakasha netindzaba temvelo liyachubeka nekwakha imithetho omgomo letawengamela kuphepha nekusebenziseka kwemvelo lapha eveni. Emhlanganweni lochubeka kwayihotela le-The George kaManzini lebegamelele emabhalanelo omkhulu wetiko letekuvakasha Zwakele Dlamini uthi uyethemba ukuthi lo mhlangano utawuphuma nelikhambi lelifanele.
As a country, we have adopted a policy in a subject matter and creating an enabling environment for the use of biotechnology and its products in the country.
Lokumela libandla letemvelo bezomhlanga kuyachaza ukuthi lo mthetho utawusebenta kanjani.
Umhlangano wanamuhla-ke ema-regulations esingasho nje ukuthi ngumkhombandlela wokuthi lo mthetho we-Biosafety Act wa-2012 singawusebenzisa kanjani. Sithi phecelezi si-operationalize umthetho wa-2012. Lokwenteka-ke ukuthi-ke sinalabantu labaqhamuka lesingathi balimi bantu labaprocessako njengoba sathi ukuthi kudla kwetilwane esikhathini esiningi basebenzisa wona ema-GMOs futhi kube naba-cotton labatawubuka lama-regulations ekutheni engabe vele kutifaka tonkeni tingoni letetintfo leto labatisebenzisako nekokuthi kuyafundzeka yini bayaconza yini naloko kuthi ukhuluma ngani.
Lo mhlangano-ke usachubeka ehhotela le-The George kaManzini. Kubika KM Sibing Nasimuva Shongwe naFezile Khatshwa sikaManzini.
Umlawuli wetekuchumana ubambisene nelitiko letekwatisa nekuchumana sewetfulele libandla labacondzisi bamsakato wetitfombe Eswatini TV umtsetfo losakhanganya lotawufaka sandla ekusebenteni kwalo msakato ngenhloso yekutfutfukisa tinhlelo tawo lo msakato. Umhlangano bobanjelwe ehhotela lasesibiki ngalesibili.
Khuluma nenzatheli yalo msakato lobambe kuba ngumphathi weSwatini TV Andreas Lamini uthi kuthuthuka kwalo msakato kuncike ekubambisaneni kwemikhakha lehlukene lebuke kusebenta kwawo.
Ibhodi njengoba yakhethwa wayifaka minister ufuna ke bese siya orientwa nje ukuthi siteshi sihamba kanjani yini imithetho lephathelene naso imithetho lesigayidako njengokuthi nje uchamuke baka-regulator basho ukuthi lokubhekeka ukuthi Eswatini TV akwende indlela efuna ahambe ngayo ngunayi achamuke na-Minister of ICT athi thina sifuna ukuthi indaba yaka-broadcasting ihambe ibhekele imithetho lesinayo ithi lephathelene ne-broadcasting kuchamuke nalaba ema-departments lahlukene like athi estation ukuthi so that ibhodi itoba nesithombe lesiphelele lokuthi lesteshi Eswatini TV njani.
Sihlalo webhodi yeSwatini TV umntwana nenkosi Sicunusa uthi kulandzela imigomo nemibandzela lenko lokutawukwenta kusebenta kwabo kube nempumelelo.
Ingcikitsi lenkulu ukuthi ibhodi kufuna isasebenza ithola mhlawumbe ama-guidelines lalawo kanata ikhomba indlela ngokuthi itiphi tinto lokufuna batinake kakhulu basasebenza umsebenzi we-oversight ukuthi-ke babe nalo lwati ukuthi yini imbambangoma ekhona etikweni laka-ICT isikhomo nakhona nangekhathi ka-TV ngoba sisebenta nge-board charter leyona ingema-guidelines.
Ngengosi ucubeke waveta ukuthi lokudzingeke kakhulu ekutheni lo msakato ukhiphe tinhlelo letawutsandvwa ababukeli yimali lekufanele batfole tindlela tekuyakha kute umsebenti ube secophelweni lelisetulu nebalandzeli bawo. Itindzabeni teSwatini TV nginguMpungose Magagule ehhotela yasesibiki.
Libandla la Eswatini National Trust Commission likhutsata abalimi nalabahlala ngasemateteni ukuthi bakhone ukuhlalisana nemvelo ngekungayithikamete. Sandile Kumetse waleli bandla uthi sive asinganatsi tinkhomo sinomenjani ngoba lamatete angagedvuleka ngenxa yekusebenziseka kabi.
Fanele ukuthi sisebende letindzaba talamatete sicale sakhe indlela lesitawuwasebentisa ngayo lokufaka ekhatsi kwekuthi si-formalize le process by developing nakulesithi ngema-community in this instance ema-community wetlands management plans ngawo lawo lapho bese senispecifya kahle noma nibhalisisa kabanti lokuthi nidalisebentisa njani emanti atawutfolakala njani and nanisenda letintfo leto nenda naloko ukuthi nathi loko ukuthi niyalivikela lona lokuthi ligcine lingakageduleki ngobe lelitete lisawakhokhala amani leliwakhokhako niyadzinga loko ukuthi niwashiye nanga emanti lawa lasimamisa lengcenye yalo lefaka ekhatsi imvelo lehlukahlukene lekungaba dilwane kungaba timfishi kungaba ngileyo misundvu labanye nje abasawate emagawozi emandini nawo lamagawozi atfolakala lapha emandini nguleto tintfo nje lesithi asitiphakamise.
Licwaningo lolwendiwe inhlangano yahulumende lelwa nesifo se-AIDS eNature likhomba ukuthi tifo letitsatselwana ngelicansi titfolakale titinyendi kakhulu kubantfu labaneminyaka lelishumi-nesiphohlongo kuya eminyakeni lenge-22. Lobukete licwaningo enhlanganweni yaka-Nature Tengitile Dlamini uthi lolicwaningo lwendiwe iminyaka lemithatfu.
Labantwana ngoba phela sitawukhumbula ukuthi bangenela abo-intergenerational sex for the benefit of i-transaction bayayifuna le mali so ukuthi the more bayithola le mali lama-risky behaviors abo ayehla. Lokunye-ke lesikubukile yindzaba yema-STIs ngoba labe rafule bebatestwa ukuthi ema-STIs uthi tena utestwa watholakala ukuthi ude yini nangabe ude bowungena-ke kule draw uthole le extra money. Bantwana-ke bethu noma-ke labasha bethu labakhulakhulile laba 18 to 22 ngibo labathole kule ukuthi ama-STIs maningi kubo. And-ke lamanye ama-STIs atholakala ekucaleni ngoba sende hlolo lwekucala sibuka kokuthi simo sinjani lesithi baseline. Sase sesibuka-ke and ema-result e-effect yale study sethu sasitakhela lekusasa. Lekucaleni bamfana labe bangekho esikolweni lele sabathatha saba-enrolla sabafaka esikolweni ema-STIs bekamaningi kakhulu kubo. Siwabona-ke ayehla ezibaba kule study ngoba kuningi labe bafundiswa kona noma sebatestwa labe batholakala ukuthi ba-positive balinkwe to care bathole ukuthi belashwe nalabe baba-positive balinkwe netibhedlela bakhone ukuthi bathole ukuthi bangene ku-art. Indzaba-ke ye-pregnancy ngiyo njengoba ngiveta nje ukuthi i-pregnancy bengiletinye tizathu tek-drop out. I-pregnancy beyisetulu kakhulu lekucaleni nasisenda loluhlolo lwekucala kepha-ke siyibona ngale intervention lena liyehla isuka le-20% pregnancy iyehla ifika ku-4%.
Live leNdiya lonyaka litawuniketa eMaswati tikhala temfundzate letinge-30 kusukela kuleto letinge-25 betisolo tiniketwa njalo ngeminyaka. Mapalane walonxusele live leNdiya kuleli Brahmam Jakapathuni uthi lelive litawuphindze linikete umfundzate kubantfu labalikhulu labafise kufundzela emakhono lafaka ekhatsi umculo kumave lafaka ekhatsi live laseSwatini.
Udlelwano belive laseSwatini nelive leNdiya solo buyachubeka nekuthuthuka etinhlangothini letahlukene tentfutfuko njengoba ngomnyaka wa-2019 lamava acala lihlelo lokushiyelana lugwayi kutemasiko kanti njalo ngeminyaka lelive liniketa abantfwana bemaswati labangama-25 25 umfundzate wekuyofundza emakolisha kulela live. Lo nyaka losabambe kuba linxusa lelive leNdiya kuleli Brahma Jakapathuni uthi ngenxa yebudlelwano lobuhle kulamave lamabili tinombolo temfundzate setenyukile tefike ema-30 tisetawuchubeka tenyuke futhi usachubeka umnyaka.
This year, in the first announcement itself, we are announcing 30 scholarships. Depending upon the response to those scholarships, there is a possibility that we are going to increase that number also. And we are going to recommend it, after seeing the response from here. So these 30 scholarships of ICCR, this is an annual thing, and these are for students who are applying for undergraduation up to the research PhD courses. So undergraduation normally is for 3 years, masters is for 2 years, and PhD course, depending upon the course requirements, it may go up to 5 years. And these are fully funded by Government of India. When we say fully funded, it includes everything like monthly stipend to the students, which is which includes the accommodation in whatever university or college hostel, their incidentals like books, various expenses which they are supposed to incur there.
Ngakulokunye live leNdiya litawuphindze linikete umfundzate kubantfu labalikhulu mhlaba wonke kufaka ekhatsi live laseSwatini labafise kuyofundzela temakhono kufaka ekhatsi umculo nekujayiva kulokunye. Etindzabeni te-Eswatini TV kubika Samkeliswe Khoza nginasikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Umbutho wembube nesive unxusa abashayeli betimoto ukuthi bacaphelisise basasebenzisa umgwaqo kulandzela kwanza kwetinombolo tetingoti temgwaqo letitsinza abantfwana. Uchumaniso wesive namaphoyisa phindile ivilakati ukuthi tinge-22 tingoti temgwaqo lapho kutheka bedeke khona abantfwana kusukela ucalile umnyaka.
Sibona ukuchubeka kwetingoti lesetiveta tinombolo letinkhulu kakhulu letitsinza abantfwana kakhulu kati laba labasemkhatsini weminyaka munye uya eminyakeni lelishumi. Sikhuluma nje kucala lo mnyaka sesinato tingoti letitsetsa umphefumulo webantfwana labatsatfu, sibe nato tingoti letilimete bantfwana kakhulu labangu-5 kanye nalabo-ke labatsinzekile labangu-14. Kitsi-ke lokho kuyakhombisa ukuthi kufuna sicinise indlela yekuphepha thina lesebenzisa timoto nabo batali. Siyacela isivele ngokuthi sisahamba emgwacweni kakhulukazi ngetikhathi tasekuseni netikhathi tantambama mase baphumele esikoleni, vele litubane asilinake kakhulu. Sati ukuthi umfana umuntu lone-character nje letsite, i-excitement ingamenda angasakunaki lokunye angene emgwacweni bese beyasilimalela ngaleyo ndlela. Sikhuluma namhlanje ekuseni khona imoto legicikile lebeyilayishe bona abantwana besikolo, lokusho kona ukuthi kunenge kufuna sikunake kakhulu sisasebenzisa wona umgwaco. Siyabacela nebatali nabo ukuthi akube insayeya kwenta siciniseko sokuthi umntwana uhamba uphephile asaya esikolweni. Siyathembisa-ke sive ukuthi singamaphoyisa sitawuphuma nathi siye etikolweni siyobafundzisa abantwana ukuthi kufuna batiphathe njani, kepha lokhu-ke sitakwenta ngekubambisana naso sive.
Imvotsa lebeyikaze yelekelela singani sayo bashaya lenye imvotsa bayigwaze yashona khona lapho. Lokucala bendeke endzaweni yekucedza koma ebhareni lasemseni esifundeni sasishiselweni.
Loyo lobekwe licala ekubulala lokungibonga uMenzi Thabethe sofaka isicelo sokutekela ngephandle enkantolo lenkulu kuleli cala ekubulala kuthiwa Thabethe latluye enyangeni engongoni eminyakeni lophelile wagwaza emqinisele emkhwasha ngalokucijile emahlandla lamanyente emtimbeni wonke. Lesibili abhekene nalo Thabethe ngilelo lokugwaza kanye nomvuyo khumalo ngenhloso yokumbangela buhlungu emtimbeni. Emaphepheni ekutokela ngephandle la kawafaka enkantolo lenkulu, Thabethe uthi waboshwa amaphoyisa asenhlangano athi nge-24 enyangeni yengongoni kulo mnyaka lophelile. Uthi kungumanje ubhadle ejele asenhlangano. Uthi naselitekwa leli cala ngeke alivume njengaloku beyakathi ativikela hayi ukuthi bekaconze kubulala. Lomsolwa uthi natlunye enyangeni yengongoni eminyakeni lophelile. Asatinathele Mankwebevu kwafika umngane wakhe wathi abaye kuyonathi ebhareni lasecembeni. Utshela inkantolo ukuthi nathi mabafika kuleli bhara batfola umfilo wafike wambuta ngekumkhahlabeta ukuthi akambingeleli ngani. Uthi bachubeka nekunatha kwate washaya insimbi yesikhombisa ebusuku. Uthi base emva kwaloko bachubekela ebhareni lasemseni. Uthi baphuma ngekhathi bayokudla bebathe bakuthengile. Uthi basengephandle singani semufi safika samthela ngembama ebusweni. Osenemufi naye uyangenelela naye uyamlekelela singani sakhe bayamshaya. Lomsolwa uthi wamangala wabuta ukuthi bamshayelani kodwa kwabanhlangathi moya ngemoya kodwa leli Tanzania tachubeka nekumshaya. Uthi basachubeka nekumshaya umufi wasukhipha umukhwa waconza kuye. Umsolwa uthi wetama kubaleka kodwa umufi wamcosha. Lomsolwa uthi wasi umufi nakathi uyamgwaza wamgeja. Umsolwa uthi kwaba kulapho naye wakhipha khona umkhwa wamgwaza umufi. Usonela kugwaza umufi sase lesingani salomufi kanye nebangani baso bayamhlasela kwaba ngilapho lase singani salomfisi alimala khona. Lijaji lenkantolo lenkulu John Mavuso unika umsoli imvume yokutokela ngephandle lebita imali engu-15,000 emalangeni. Ubese uthi kule mali akabhadala imali engu-3,500 emalangeni bese lelenye ibasibambiso. Umsoli umelwe ngummeli wakhe noNcedo Dlangamandla. Etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla. Mina Reji Dlamini senkantolo lenkulu.
Bamake ngaphansi kwe-Council of Churches babambe umthandazo wokuthanazela kuthula lapha eveni nekuphela kwekuhluphetana ngetebulili. Lo mhlangano obanjelwe eBosco Skill Center kaManzini.
Bomake ngaphansi kwe-Council of Swaziland Churches bahlangene ngemthandazo wokuthandazela kuthula lapha eveni nekuthandazela kuphela kokuhlukumetana lokubonakala kwanza kulamalanga. Tikhulumeke tifake ekhatsi bengungu yamathemba sicandvulo sabomake netinyeke tikhulumi. Nomsa Dlamini longusihlalo we-Council of Churches eluphikweni labomake uyasilandzisa ngalokubasuze phansi baba nalo mthandazo nebumcoka bawo.
Thine sithi Nkosi sive namhla-ke itimu yethu ikuye yena lo Jeremiah 29 lapho khona kuvesi 12 sekakhuluma ngokuthi uthi uNkulunkulu nidabe seseniyangibita-ke nithandaze kimi mina ngidaniva.
Cebile Dlamini longumabhalane jikelele we-Rural Women's Assembly uthi timo letikhona tibente babona ukuthi abangahlali kodwa asale basukuma njengoba lenzaba seyinkangabo babomake. Bathi-ke angeke bayekele ukuthandaza nokucela ukuthi kube nenkulumiswano lapha eveni njengoba iyathingeka. Etindzabeni ngingugiyani Msibi Nasimuva Shongwe naFezile Mkhatshwa kaManzini.
Kutemidlalo, licembu leMbabane Swallows lishaya licembu leThambuti ngemagoli lamathathu ecanzeni. Emagoli eMbabane Swallows ashaywe nguFelix Badenhorst lobe sekashaya ligoli lakhe leli-11. Felix ubese utfola nelikhadi lelibovu kulomdlalo. Sandile Hlatshwayo yena uvalele lesibili lelente ukuthi baye ekhefini bahamba ngalamabili ecanzeni. Esigameni sesibili Muthanda ubuye wavalela lesithathu leSwallows kepha iThambuti itfolele kubika ngemva kweliphutha epalini la goalkeeper. Umdlalo uphele ngemagoli lamathathu linye yancoba iSwallows. Kapteni ulikhethelo lesive Sihlangu Semnikati kanye neYoung Buffaloes Lindo Mkhonda uthi uyodlala eveni leZambia uyethemba ukuthi ovulela lamanye emaswati emathuba ukuthi ayotshengisa likhono lawo. Lindo uyodlalela licembu leZesco United eZambia.
Lindo Mkhonda waqala ukudlalela icembu leYoung Buffaloes ngeminyaka wa-2016 lapho ke wadlala wagcina sekadlalela nekhethelo lesive leseke ungukapteni waso. Mkhonda sawutholeke nelithuba lekuyodlala eveni leZambia lapho khona angena esivumelwaneni naseminyaka lemibili nelicembu lelikhulu lelalive iZesco United. Mkhonda uthi ufise kuba sibonelo lesihle kubadlali bakwangana sadlala khona eZambia.
Isifiso sami lesikhulu ngisaphumile ekudlaleni ekhaya. Ngifisela ukuthi manje ngibe sibonelo. Ngifisela ukuthi manje ngibe sibonelo kakhulu kibo badlali bethu basekhaya. Lokuthi ngithi ngifuna kuba sibonelo ngifise ukuthi kungabi ngimi ngedwa noma ke kuphele lesikhathi lengilasisebenza la eZambia la sengidlala khona nyalo teamini iZesco kube bede lomunye longilandzele from ekhaya. So ngiva ngazuthi kungaba into lenhle ukuthi ngekusebenta kwami lokukhulu ngekutimisela kwami lokukhulu kukutabenda abantu beZesco ukuthi noma kungasibona bodwa laba bala eZambia noma ngabe ngikuphi ngaphandle kutabenda ukuthi babe neliso lokuthi kangwane shothi kukhona into leyakhiwako.
Mkhonda uthi kudlala kahle kwakhe kutophindze kube nemthelela lomuhle ekhethelweni lesive. Lobekela umsakazo weEswatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathizwe Msibi eMbabane.
Ngaleto imidlalo siyatiphetsa indzaba tetfu lomhla ekseni start self nasibuya sikhulumisana nalabasuka eSwatini Tourism Authority yasenshini simo selitulu.
Do you want to see innovation and development in your town? Join others who are also wishing to see change in their towns by registering for local government elections. Registration will start on the 16th of January and end on the 24th of February 2023. To register, bring these documents to selected voting points in your towns. Your national identity, proof showing your ownership of land on that town, or proof indicating that you own a business or have been residing on that town for more than 6 months. Proof that your business has been registered under the Registrar of Companies. It's yours, it's mine, it's ours. We transform our town.
Welcome back. Sikuvusele nawe losanza kusivulela. It's a Friday. Besisho sistabe sikhulumisana nalapha suka eSwatini Tourism Authority. Sasivese naye lapha phiwo kuhle dlamini losuka khona eka ETA. Dokumleke ukuthi this week the Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs Moses Vilakazi officially launched the Love of Month campaign. Lebitwa ukuthi #LoveEswatini. Ngomsebenzi kulona lohambisana nayo domestic tourism also nayo i-campaign lena minister la launch way back in 2020 ngaphansi kwesicubulelo sithi a wonder awaits, explore it. So let's explore nje all these years sita kulimisana kabanti naye phiwe kuhle kuva ukuthi ingabe what does #LoveEswatini entailed. Sadly ukuthi kufaya khathi ukuthi vele sivakashela tindzawo talapha ekhaya eSwatini, and also there's a competition for couples as we are celebrating the month of love. Good morning and welcome. Thank you. So Valentia, you're in the gear of Valentine's.
In the
Red and white.
spirit of love.
Yeah, all right. Kumsingangeni campaign #LoveEswatini. I think njengoba sengivitile ukuthi minister officially launched the domestic tourism campaign way back in 2020. I think ngaba kuva nje ukuthi the past 3 years ihambe kanjani leyo campaign leyo, have people been visiting local attractions?
Yes, Lulu, people have been exploring Eswatini with so much enthusiasm, and it's so beautiful to see. Mawuthi 3 years, I almost can't believe it's 3 years already, because lel sasasa solo liningi lekuvakasha even laseSwatini. Emaswati continue to fall in love, and now because we're talking about love, Emaswati have continued to fall in love with the country's domestic tourism offerings, and kuhle kubona ukuthi Emaswati have started to see themselves as tourists. And that is basically what we have been trying to drive through our campaigns, to ensure that Emaswati feel welcome to visit the different tourism establishments and experience the different tourism offerings that the Kingdom of Eswatini has to offer.
All right. I know that solo ni pusha about domestic tourism, but also I was just going through your statistics, and angathola ukuthi in 2020 Eswatini received about 345,000 tourists, which was Eswatini athola ranking 144 in the world. I think ukuthi not only are you pushing for domestic tourism, but also international tourists ayeda tovakashela Eswatini. How's that going? Tourists from other countries kuhamba kanjani lokho?
Lulu, it's been really amazing, and looking at the fact that we have just come from a very difficult time, a challenging time, it's COVID-19 in the country. Ema tourists, when they plan their destinations or places that they're going to visit, they include Eswatini in their itinerary, and that is beautiful to see. And festive season besikhona la sikhuluma #ChooseEswatini, nayo umkhankaso lo wahamba kahle kakhulu, besikhuluma ke domestic tourism, but the arrivals at the time. Within a space of just 5 days, they were promising statistics that prove to us, Kuti, indeed we are on the right track where tourism recovery is concerned. And Nalapo, they continue to come, and you will remember that in 2020, we were also lauded as one of the world's top destinations by internationally renowned travel agency Lonely Planet. And the effects from that, the impact of that accolade has really been incredible for us, because it has positioned us amongst the world's biggest countries. And it says to the international tourists, when you're looking for places to visit, not just in Africa, but umhlaba wonke, make sure that you consider and visit the Kingdom of Eswatini.
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful things that came out with the domestic the domestic tourism campaign, is that establish there's so many beautiful places that people can visit. Push the domestic tourism.
It's been very important. I think in as much as kukutsata tivakashi talane ekhaya eSwatini ukuthi tivakashe tijabulele buhle belive lethu, it's also encouraged the tourism industry yethu to keep reinventing themselves and keep reintroducing new and innovative experiences that eMaswati can enjoy. Because now buka nje tindzawo lengatibala, over the last 2 years, yes, we were, under certain travel restrictions, but we saw the emergence of really enticing tourism products, cinema spas in Ezulwini, there's fine dining establishments and experiences, Signe Water Park in places such as Subebe Resorts, Infinity Pools, there's new accommodation establishments, there's the new wing at Happy Valley. It's been really, really encouraging to see, and I think i-industry ikhuthadwa ngilokubona ukuthi eMaswati ayakhuthalela nawo kuvakasha lana eveni laseSwatini. So we really, really welcome and applaud the tourism industry for thinking out of the box, for being innovative and responding quite brilliantly and creatively to the enthusiasm for tourism in the country.
All right, so now let's talk about the hashtag Love Eswatini campaign that the minister recently launched. City Njema City Love Eswatini. What does the campaign entail?
Okay, Lulu, Nasiti hashtag Love Eswatini. We are speaking to the month and the theme of love associated with February. We are saying love your loved ones, spoil your loved ones. And while you do that, fall in love with the kingdom of Eswatini's unique and world-renowned tourism experiences. So, City, as we think of the many ways that we want to show love to our loved ones or that special someone, let's consider traveling Eswatini. What better way, to say I love you than with a travel experience? We've heard experts say, love experts say there's 5 love languages, but we believe there's a 6th, and that is travel, and specifically traveling Eswatini. So that's basically what we are saying. The call to action is explore the country with your loved ones, and our campaign is not necessarily directed to romantic partners. Love is not limited to just a romantic partner. We're speaking to family, we're speaking to friends, anyone that you feel you want to show love to. Tata magwako, tata putwako, umzala, umgani, could be anyone. Nahambe nivakashe. Man vakashile, the love is renewed. Kuba kuhle kakhulu, kuba mnanzi. You get to create new memories together. So we're saying, ningabe nisabuka kashane this Valentine's, Eswatini has everything that you need, from dining to accommodation to outdoor activities. Some people like a candlelit dinner. Some people want to go check into an accommodation establishment, and other people want to go out in the outdoors. Nema game drives, horse riding, quad biking, the zip lining, canopy tours. There's just so much to love about the kingdom of Eswatini in this month of love.
Yeah, speaking of traveling, fine dining, and and game drives, I will assume that hotels have arranged some packages or specials during the month of love.
Yes, Lulu.
So ngumaphi specials love?
Wow, Lulu, there's so many of them, maningi kakhulu, and they cut across the different regions of the country. It doesn't matter where you are, there is a Valentine's special waiting for you to indulge. So kunema dining, njengoba bengisho this dining specials. So kunema specials about candlelit dinner for 2. There's accommodation specials, and my specials are run throughout February. So you can take that loved one, no man hambe, even as a group. It's not just limited to couples. Nehambe, you enjoy a nice and comfortable, relaxing accommodation. And there's also my outdoor canopy. Tonje, for example, also has their own specials, Maninga Kulululu, and that's why we've been encouraging Maswati to visit our social media pages, because we've been sharing on our stories the posters for the different specials that we have, and most of them have been running from the 1st of February all the way to the end of February, the last day, which is the 28th of February. So sicela kutsate Maswati tasilandzele ka Facebook, singo Eswatini Tourism, ka Instagram, singo Eswatini Tourism, bese na ka Twitter nakhona, singo Eswatini Tourism.
All right. I know that you sort of nisebenzisana nje nama-tour operators nathi saba nawo la nabachazela ngama-packages. Atoba kahle nawo mhlambe during this month of love ukuthi bamfu bawasebenzisa so that they can explore more places.
Ema-tour packages, Lulu, ahlale akhona. Sisebenzisana kakhulu nema-tour operators alana Eswatini. Uyakhumbula nje umkhankaso wethu we-festive season labe sithi #choose Eswatini kahle besihambisa embili ema-tour operators. We were recognizing them, applauding them, and promoting the works that they do in promoting domestic tourism in the country, because uyokhanza ukuthi ngalesinye isikhathi lo munye umuntu uyafuna lokuvakasha manje uhlushwa ukuthi kumbe akade singitiphi indzawo la ngativakashela noma ke u-day transport ubukathi mina ngeti imoto ngidawufikelwa ngibani ehlane. Ema-tour operators, they package a whole experience for you. Ifake ekhathi transport, ngalesinye isikhathi ifake meals, ifake entry fees, ifake nanema activities ekhathi, and it's usually family friendly experiences. Konke lokho is already done for you. All you have to do is just pay. Kulama tour operators, it is a paid service, and then from there you just go and you explore. Everything is taken care of. So nanyalo nje ma tour operators wawahambise mbili ku website yethu ethi www.thekingdomofeswatini.com. You will find an updated list of tour operators in the country. So we do encourage Maswati to visit our website as well as view our stories, because nalama posters ema tour packages lakhona ngalo ngeValentine's siyawasharisha khona.
Speaking of the tourism website, ndathola tonke indzawo mhlambe leti khona la eSwatini. Have you updated the list? Because sometimes it's easier when you can website.
Yeah, we are constantly refreshing and updating our websites, especially with the emergence of the new tourism establishments over the last 2-3 years. It's important that Eswatini know what tourism looks like in the country and what experiences they can look forward to. So yes, our website is constantly up to date, even with the news items. Because we want to also know about the tourism also through the articles that we put up on our website. And also I think it's important statistics tourism how are we performing as a sector, and we have those updated every month. There is a page for it on our website.
All right. There's a competition during this month of love for couples, your loved ones. So how can we enter this competition?
Very exciting, this competition. I think a lot of people always look forward to our competitions with our campaigns. Agwendegi just even a campaigning a competition, because in the competition we're almost rewarding a Maswati for choosing, the country, but we're also giving them a chance to sample the different tourism offerings that we have. And industry Lulu. Basibambise kakhulu kulama competitions and ama campaigns. They came in as sponsors, and I think it's worth noting, in as much as Eswatini are eager to travel the country, but so is the industry. They are so welcoming and ready to support all domestic tourism initiatives, and they have done it again, Lulu, for the hashtag Love Eswatini Domestic Tourism Valentine's campaign. They have sponsored us with prizes to make sure that Eswatini are able to travel. They can sample the new experiences. We've got 2 phases of our competition. The first phase gave Itolo on the 2nd of February, 7 February, and then we will announce our 3 winners on the 8th of February. And then the second phase, iyavulwa nayo on the 9th of February, iyavalwa 13 February, and on the 14th of February, which is Valentine's Day, we announce our second batch of winners. So just to, please give me a chance to run through the prizes that we have prepared, all sponsored by the tourism industry in partnership with our official partner, Big Game Parks. So first prize, we have a night for 2 at Riley's Rock, which is at Mlilwane Wildlife Sanctuary, and also a night for 2 at Bako All Suites, which is a newly emerged tourism establishment, accommodation, self-catering accommodation. Then gune 2 luxury spa pedicure vouchers at say White Orchid Day Spa. That's just prize number 1. That's a grand prize, right? And then we have the second prize, which is 1 night bed and breakfast for 2, plus 1 hour game drive for 2 Sholo Bushveld safaris. Then we have 1 night for 2 in a decorated ensuite room, but ma roses, ma chocolates, ma champagnes, a peace center guest house, and then Pinza Gubene full body massages for 2 at the George Hotel Spa. So that's prize number 2. And then our third prize is 1 night for 2 bed and breakfast, Esibebe Resort. It comes with the zip lining, access to the infinity pool, as well as the new water park and entry fees. And then also Gubane Hamper from Precious Treats, who's a young entrepreneur who makes really nice baked goods. So she has also come in as a sponsor. It's not just the tourism industry, it's also SMEs wanting to support domestic tourism. And then Gegubana Phase 2 Nakona, which we will announce from 9 to the 13th of February. Facebook, Instagram, one of the entries, and how people are just so excited to shower the ones that they love with love. And because city, in order to go competition, these are the steps. You have to follow Eswatini Tourism on all social media platforms. 2, you have to then Just write a caption, upload a picture or a video, or bale a caption of why you love this person that you have selected. And
it can be anyone,
it can be
mother,
anyone,
sister,
mage,
okay.
umzala, umngani, your partner, and then you tell us what you love about them, firstly, and secondly, what would constitute a perfect Eswatini holiday for you and that partner, that chosen partner. You're dreaming, and then the post with the most likes wins.
Kanjalo nje.
Kanjalo. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
And I check, we had over 100 submissions on Facebook. Naga Instagram, we had about 80 already likes on our post. And so it's going really, really well. Siyavala mhlaka 7, there's still time for Emaswati to enter, and we do encourage that you do so.
So lababato announce mhlaka 7.
But we'll announce mhlaka 8.
Mhlaka 8.
Yes, that's the first phase. And then the second phase, iyavulwa mhlaka 9 February, iyavulwa mhlaka 13, and we announce on the 14th.
All right.
And important to note is that naso winning a good first phase, you will not qualify to enter for the second phase. Yes.
All right. No, thank you so much, Pio. Le competition sounds interesting. Now we're prizes to be won. A night away, with your loved one. I'm sure that is something that you'd want to do in this month of love. Let's take a break, Mbugeli. That's where starts our traffic update.
Hey yo, this is DJ Cybers. What's up guys, King J's here.
My name is Tripo Intellectual.
What's up everybody, my name is SK.
Hey guys, this is your girl Z.
This weekend Eswatini has been such an amazing show. For all the years they've always supported all the local talents and all the local shows.
Catch This Weekend Eswatini every Fridays.
It's one of the best entertainment shows Eswatini.
So guys, you know what, this is the best show to have. Like if you watch Swazi TV and you're a person who actually enjoys watching like musical shows that have a lot of content, that have good stuff, This Weekend Eswatini is your show.
For all the good vibes, all the good energy, make sure you tune into This Weekend Eswatini every Friday from 5:30 to 6:30. I'll say it again, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m.
A 1-hour fun-filled train of entertainment. We are taking you from 5:30 all the way to 6:30 every Friday, live on Eswatini TV.
And yes, of course, we are your #1 entertainment show in the kingdom of Eswatini. But you can interact with us on all social media platforms. We are at This Weekend Eswatini on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram. Lalela Tina, we will definitely get back to you. This is your official weekend party starter.
I don't wanna go around singing songs that people don't.
Welcome back. It's 10 minutes before 7 o'clock. Sicetha kukhulumisana na Communications P1 Eswatini Tourism Authority. This week, Minister of Tourism Moses Vilakazi officially launched the #LoveEswatini campaign. Campaign gelena lahlale ayisukumisa Minister Nyangeni Yendlovana kuzamanje njengoba sisuke celebrate the month of love. I think uyichazile P1 inzaba besolo say discuss ayikhomela ukuthi besibotana ukuthi is it for couples only, but it can also be commemoration ngilithambo lonalo for your mother, your sibling, your dog. Cousin, even your dog. Yes. So yes, anyone can enter this competition during this month of love. There's also a competition lapho khona kuwina ama prizes lamaningi niyahamba niyongcebeleka nje tinzaweni letehlukene. So ngicabanga ukuthi dahamba kahle sifiso naloko ukuthi sekude ke stress ukuthi you have to have a partner. You can be your mother or a sibling.
Here's another thing, Lulu. I'm just thinking as you're talking to Pio, I'm thinking that the importance of the tourism industry, the tourism ministry and ETA, the work that they are doing, taking advantage of every major event and every major awareness month or whatever is going on or trending at a particular time. tourism was very visible. Before that basic festive season, they were visible. Build up to the festive season, they're very, so for them, they can literally take advantage of anything, whether it's cultural, whether it's social, whatever it is, and they can find a way to make it about, you know, boosting the country's economy domestically, as well as, you know, whether it be intra-African, whatever way they can. I think it's a beautiful thing, and
yes, true. Since the minister I launched a domestic tourism campaign in 2020, I think there's been more establishments of local attractions. Now to Yalena against our lunch, now to Yalena against our lunch, but I think we city looks about pushing domestic tourism that you can visit.
I was in Sentlangano a couple of weeks ago, and I saw 2 new establishments that tourists can go and really have fun. There's one by Gamjuda, first, right? It's up there, I've forgotten the name. There's another one on your way to the casino, which is beautiful because you can go to the casino and you can choose to go to this other place because it also offers accommodation. So it's just so beautiful. Motivate abantu business, and again, I think it also does help in about job creation. People don't have jobs, people are unemployed. So if people can start their own startups and by following the environment is conducive, ministries are doing their job. They are making the soil or the ground fertile. Business even outside of tourism, and commerce is working so hard. Business. So I just think it's all beautiful. The ministries are and making sure
if you want to go you can visit their website, and also there's a page on Facebook. Eswatini 6 minutes before 7, a second break, stop in a traffic update.
Lesi sikhathi lapho khona emaphoyisa agubha kuba khona kwawo eveni. Kulapho kukhuthathwa khona sive ukuthi sike sihlale phansi sibuke bumcoka bemaphoyisa empilweni yabantu. Siphindze sibuke indlela letinsha tekuphepha kubo bonke bucala lobuveta sihloko. Sive sakangwane siyakhunjutwa ukuthi singawafaki emaphoyisa etinkulumeni tepolitiki ngoba liphoyisa alingeni futhi alingenelani nepolitiki. Emaphoyisa alwa nebucala netingoti temgwaco kuphela nje. Ingako emaphoyisa athi wonke umuntu eveni akahlale ngaphandle kwekunceneka ukuthi angahle ahlaselwe tilwane tasendle. Umuntu lohlala eSwatini akatiphilele atisebentele ngaphandle kwekwesaba kuhlaselwa kwemucwa nekucekelwa phansi kwempahla yakhe. Nawe wena lophathekile, emaphoyisa athi digulele kahle uze uphile ngaphandle kwekuphatamiseka. Lokungenteka ngekuthi tidlova tingene tihlasele labo labakunakekelako kuleyo ndlu. Sive lesihlakaniphile nguleso lesiphakamisa kusebenta kwemaphoyisa nabo bonke labalwa nebucala. Ngale kwaloko timbungushe tiyawuwangenela emazinyane kungenamuntu ekhaya. Lo mlayeto niulethelwa ngemaphoyisa eMbube abambisene nomsakato wetithombe.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni per month. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store. We're good together.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Do you remember the spinning thing? This is us. This picture represents what we did. We were there when coronavirus wreaked havoc in our population. Together with other stakeholders, we formed the first line, controlling the spread of the unknown and unseen enemy of the people. Anxious ourselves, we collected dead bodies countrywide, At the time when no one wanted to come near dead bodies of loved ones, we did care for our fellow citizens. Thank you, the people of Eswatini and teams of first responders.
Welcome back. It is 57 minutes after 6 lomhla ekuseni. Ngesikhathi sanyalo ke sithola yona i-traffic update leqhamuka kubo bona betemthetho. We have Sergeant Gule emoyeni Magwabane sikuvusele lomhla ekuseni. Ingabe sime kanjani simo emgwaqweni?
Anguvusele Mnguni, ngivusele umbukelo waloluhlelo sivuka namuhla. Simo selitulo kuletinye izindzawo uyabonakala umkhemedelo. Yebo etulo edolobheni laseMbabane iyomile imigwaqo. Noko ke iyabonakala inkungu lapha etulo lapha konke nakuletinye nje izindzawo. Dalo live kuqhumbutane kugcizelela kumshayeli ukuthi sishayela ngesimo lesikhona emgwaqweni. Na uyawukhanza kunenkungu uyawunqaphisa litubane lakho kanjalo ke noma ukhanza umgwaqo umandi lokhu kuyawusho lutho kuwe ungumshayeli esigabeni sekushintsha iattitude yakho ehambelane naso simo lesikhona emgwaqweni. So uqalile ke umthamo wetmotolo kuphakama emgwaqweni kulandzela kokuthi izikolo hawo bantwana babuyela khona ke esikolweni siyawugcizelela nje kakhulu ukuthi usahamba ngale motolo yena siqiniseko sokuthi ke uhamba ngelitubane lelilingene litubane leliyawena ukuthi ulawule imotolo yakho lapho kuvela simo lesingakabhekeki khona nekugadza ke kakhulu ikakhulu kade indzaweni lapho kunebantwana noma ke wakhelene nazo tikolo asendeke isiqiniseko sokuthi sishayela ngelitubane leli phansi sibili kanti ke emadolobheni ethu tibane temgwaqo lapha edolobheni elikhulu leMbabane kumathapha kaManzini kanjalo nalapha enhlangano sisebenza kahle nasemgwaqweni wethu ke lomkhulu losuka lapha ehekeni lasengwenya lapha eTulu kuMangwaneni lapho kune cooling station khona so lotinqolo letinkulu diyemiswa lapha kukhulunywe nabo bashayeli sixwayisa ke bashayeli abahamba ngesimoto lesincane ukuthi abagcine sekudla sisasonzela lapha kuleya cooling station kanti nawehla insaba yakumalagwane solo bakhona labo labasebenzako labasihlobisela wona umgwaqo nakhona siyawugcizelela ukuthi naka timpawu unciphise litubane usasonzela kuleyo ngcingwana leyo kanti lapha kaManzini sitaladi sethu lesingkheli street solo sivaliwe nawusuka elikhaka ubheke lapha eCoast Valley nokukhuthaza ke bona laba sebenzisa nange umgwaqo longthembeke street lekusaladi lesisuka lapha ezakhele ikakhulukazi kulabo labaqhamuka eNgwane Park ukuthi asisebenzise nange umgwaqo lomusha lesakhele wona lapha iSouthern Distributor loqhamuka lapha kungako okay noma ngakazakhali uqhamukele khona lapha eBosco kanti ke emgwaqweni wethu losuka lapha eNazarene longumgwaqo long Central Distributor naye bypass road lehamba lapha eceleni kwaseMavuso nalapho siyacela ukuthi bashayele abaqaphele ngomgwaqo lobonakala sonetigodi letinkulu sibili ama-potholes lenda kokuthi unciphe umgwaqo kudinga khona ukuphambana kahle ke imotolo nemgwaqo losuka lapha eBhunya ubheke khona lapha eMalutha kunenzawana nje naso uyawufika khona egedeni ukuthi nawenda ke ukuthi umgwaqo ulimele imotolo nakhona atikhone ukuphambana lapho siyaqwayisa ke sibashayela abachubeke bashayele ngalokukhulu ukucophelela kanti ke kuletinye tifunza ngawo nje ama-potholes labonakalako lesithi liso lakho alibe ngelikhalipile njengoba bekunema-tolls labeka khona kwenta ke ukuthi lezo tigojana tibe nemandi caphela ke liso lakho likhaliphe sibili usasebenzisa ke wona umgwaqo asikhuthaze ke nabo labathu sasonasize ukuthi awube kunene asikhumbuleni phela kulayisha ngelinani elifanele ukuze kuthi phela sibe siphephe sisawusebenzisa umgwaqo ngiyabonga Mnguni sicala yona impela sonto ngeniphiseleke impela sonto nelanga lelihle esachubeka nemsebenzi wenu elibandla labonjinela lobambisene nalo naso sibe semaswati sisifisele ilanga lelihle nempela sonto leyaba ngilephephile sisawusebenzisa umgwaqo siyabonga kakhulu.
Sibonga kakhulu Magwabane na ube nempela sonto lenhle sekubumbene ke insimbi yesikhombisa sidabahlala emarket masibuya sidawuthatha indzawo lechamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Watch Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni per month. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store.
We're good together. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome back. Let's get into our international news. Peru's Congress on Wednesday voted down a second bid to advance elections from April 2024 to this year, a move sought by President Dina Boluarte to calm deadly unrest amid anti-government protests.
It's news that is unlikely to be taken well by Peru's protesters. The country's Congress has rejected a motion to bring forward upcoming elections.
Final vote, those in favour 54, against 68. Abstentions 2. Honourable members of Congress, the draft constitutional reform has not reached the votes required for its approval under Article 268 of the Constitution.
The move would have seen polls be held in December this year instead of April 2024, a measure embroiled President Dina Boluarte hoped would satiate the protesters' demand for political reform.
We have arrived here and we have brought this issue forward because our country is bleeding to death. Because we need peace as soon as possible. Because that is the first thing we must put forward, and then we can discuss other things.
Peru has been in the grip of escalating protests since December, when President Pedro Castillo was impeached and ousted after he tried to dissolve Congress to take unilateral control. Castillo's kinfolk, largely indigenous people from rural areas, took to the streets to voice their anger. But the movement has ballooned in recent weeks, with protests rallying against the government, a body they see as part of the country's out-of-touch coastal elite. The protests have also spread, no longer confined to their southern origins. A caravan of thousands descended upon Lima last week as the movement spread to the capital. Demonstrations have been met with force by police. Violence has spiked at times, killing scores of people.
Now, at least 3 people were killed and 20 wounded when a Russian rocket struck a residential building in the center of the eastern city of Kramatorsk, Ukrainian officials said.
Rescuers searched through rubble, looking for any sign of survivors. In Kramatorsk, eastern Ukraine, emergency services are dealing with the aftermath of a deadly missile strike, which struck a residential building in the city on Wednesday evening.
I first heard a whistle, then everything started to fly around.
President Volodymyr Zelensky took to Twitter to denounce the attack and call for more resources for his country.
Kramatorsk. Russian terrorists have hit the city with a ballistic missile leading to civilian casualties. Some people are still under the rubble. No goal other than terror. The only way to stop Russian terrorism is to defeat it by tanks, fighter jets, long-range missiles.
Kramatorsk is a key industrial city within the Donetsk Oblast and has been subjected to near-constant shelling by Russian forces. 50 kilometers away to the east is the front line in the city of Bakhmut, where the shelling is even more intense. Many live almost permanently underground, sheltering from the missiles. On Tuesday, a Russian strike killed at least 5, children amongst them. Bakhmut is a city that has long been coveted by Moscow. Russian troops are on the outskirts and have claimed control of some villages north of the city. Gaining control of Bakhmut could be key to seizing the entire Donbass region. According to Kyiv, A new Russian offensive is being prepared for the 24th of February, 1 year to the day after the Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Our senior members of the European Union's executive branch traveled to Ukraine on Thursday, looking to boost relations with the war-torn country and pave the way for it to one day join the bloc, but concerns over corruption and democratic deficiencies remain.
Back in Kyiv for the fourth time since Russia's invasion began, Ursula von der Leyen in the war-torn country to demonstrate to Ukraine the EU's steadfast support.
Our presence in Kyiv today gives a very clear signal. The whole of the European Union is in this with Ukraine for the long haul.
The EU Commission President and senior EU officials are meeting their Ukrainian counterparts ahead of Friday's EU-Ukraine summit, the first since Kyiv was granted candidate status last year. Brussels is eager to use the opportunity to highlight its support is invaluable to Ukraine. The bloc has welcomed between 4.5 to 5 million Ukrainian refugees. It's also allocated 50 billion euros in humanitarian, financial and military aid for Kyiv, money that's likely to continue to flow as long as the war drags on. On the eve of the summit, Brussels announced it's ramping up its efforts to train Ukrainian troops.
We launched a military training program. Over 20 countries are taking part. The aim of the initiative was to train 15,000 soldiers. The mission is going well, and we have doubled the number of soldiers the program will train, bringing it up to 30,000.
EU officials descending on Kyiv comes hot on the heels of local authorities cracking down on alleged corruption. It's set to be one of the key issues discussed on Thursday. While Ukrainian officials hope to join the bloc within the next 2 years, the EU's leadership will face the tricky task of trying to rein in Kyiv's expectations without appearing to leave Ukraine in the lurch.
Western naval forces are having to adapt to a new threat as adversaries develop new capabilities to target critical undersea infrastructure such as gas pipelines and cables.
Huge volumes of natural gas bubbled up through the Baltic Sea as the Nord Stream pipelines linking Russia and Germany ruptured in September. Underwater video shows at least 50 meters of pipeline destroyed, with huge tears observed along the seabed. Swedish investigators found traces of explosives, and the West suspects Russia of sabotage. Days after the incident, Britain announced plans to enhance its undersea defence capabilities.
Russia makes no secret of its ability to target such infrastructure. So for that reason, I can announce we have recently committed to 2 specialist ships with the capability to keep our cables and pipelines safe.
The first of those vessels is currently being fitted out by the British Navy, which says it will act as a mothership operating remote and autonomous systems for underwater surveillance and seabed warfare. Millions of kilometers of undersea cables and pipelines carry the energy and data that power the global economy.
A number of challenges to the West. Russia, most notably, are developing bespoke capabilities to target precisely these vulnerabilities. Things like special purpose submarines.
Russia denies sabotaging the Nord Stream pipelines, but observers say the Kremlin increasingly sees Western subsea infrastructure as a vulnerability. In late December, Russia launched 4 new warships, including 2 nuclear-powered submarines.
They have highly accurate weapons and robotic complexes.
Faced with that threat, NATO and the European Union last month launched a joint task force on protecting critical infrastructure. NATO's Secretary-General outlined the alliance's posture in October following the Nord Stream explosion.
Any deliberate attack against allies' critical infrastructure would be met with a united and determined response. Hybrid and cyber attacks can trigger Article 5, can constitute an armed attack against a NATO ally.
The West must clarify its rules of engagement, says analyst Kaushal.
What does one actually do when one observes, for example, a submarine tampering with critical national infrastructure, but not in a way that necessarily leads to an immediate loss of life? So actually, it's more a question of how you change organizational practices to deal with this sort of activity.
Analysts say naval forces must adapt quickly to defend critical infrastructure beneath the waves as adversaries develop new offensive capabilities in hybrid warfare. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
A plan has been announced by the United States and the Philippines to expand America's military presence in the Southeast Asian nation, with access to 4 more bases as they seek to deter China's increasingly aggressive actions towards Taiwan and in the disputed South China Sea.
A deal between the United States and the Philippines, which will see the US expand their military presence in the country and give them new ground to counter China's growing influence in the area. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced the news at a press conference in Manila on Thursday. The United States will be granted access to 4 Philippine military camps, and while there was no confirmation of where these camps will be, it is thought that they will be situated on the northern tip of the island of Luzon, just across the water from Taiwan, a country that China claims ownership to, whereas the US have previously said they would defend it from Chinese attack.
It is not about permanent basing, but it is a big deal. It's a really big deal in that, it gives us, provides us the opportunity again to interact a bit more in an effective way.
This latest move is likely to increase tensions between Washington and Beijing, as the US seem intent on protecting Taiwanese sovereignty. This new deal has not gone down well with many in the Philippines, who fear the Chinese response.
Filipinos do not need additional American troops and facilities in the country. It will only serve to increase the tensions in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait.
The deepening of military ties between the two nations comes at a time China and the Philippines are locked in their own territorial dispute over the Spratly Islands, which China claim as their own, something which Washington does not agree on, and they have regularly deployed warships and aircraft for patrols in the area, saying that they are promoting navigational freedom.
Here's a question: will President Joe Biden's second State of the Union speech be a rerun of the first, or will he cover new ground? Analysts lay out what they expect to hear from him.
Ukrainian ambassador to the United States.
This is the chance for President Joe Biden to lay out his priorities before the newly sworn-in Congress. Days ahead of Tuesday night's speech, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre warned that the speech is often reworked until the very last moment. But, she said, some topics are a safe bet.
The significant economic progress we're seeing under his leadership, his economic vision that's building our economy from the bottom up and middle out, the historic pieces of legislation passed into law over the last 2 years, which are creating good, paying middle-class jobs and delivering real results for people by fixing our roads, bridges, tunnels, lowering costs on everyday goods.
But, says historian Jeremy Suri, this policy speech is also, and always, politicized. He spoke to VOA on Zoom.
The politics matter for policy. So this is the opportunity the president has each year to try to set the agenda and to frame the public debate in ways that will benefit him and his party, but also hopefully create pressures toward the policy goals that he has.
Suri said he expects Biden to revisit his previous remarks on the soul of the nation and what he sees as threats to democracy from the far right. The war in Ukraine is also likely to come up, as it did a year ago, when it was in its infancy and Biden spoke of the West's need to help the nation fend off the Russian invasion. Biden has also said his administration wants new laws on abortion, gun violence, and police reform. But he faces a challenge. Congress holds the power to pass laws, and the opposition Republican Party now controls one of the two chambers. New House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who will take his seat behind the president on Tuesday, is locked in a debate with Biden over how to spend American taxpayer money. Republicans seek major cuts to government spending.
I've been very clear. The current path we're on, we cannot sustain. We got to change the directory to put ourselves on a path to balance. How we get there will be our discussions.
Suri says people will be watching McCarthy's reactions as he sits behind Biden during the address.
If he frowns, if he shows his displeasure, he looks dyspeptic. he looks like he's not cooperative. He looks like he's an extremist. But if he looks too happy to engage with President Biden, then of course he will alienate the far right in his party, the small group within his party and within the House who are demanding that he take on the president.
This mix of politics, policy, pomp, and personalities will be on full display when Biden speaks Tuesday night. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
And the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris paid her respects at the funeral of Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old black man who died last month after a brutal beating by Memphis police officers. Activists say more needs to be done to strengthen laws to prevent police brutality, which disproportionately affects people of color.
Tyre Nichols' family remembers him as a loving father, an eager skateboarder, and a keen photographer. The kind of guy, his brother said, who never lifted a finger to nobody. But after his brutal January 7th beating by 5 black police officers, captured on this disturbing video, America remembers him differently, as yet another black man killed by what some see as an epidemic of violent racism in American policing. Although black Americans made up 12% of the population in 2022, they made up 26% of the victims killed by police, according to monitoring group Mapping Police Violence. And statistics show that black people are 3 times more likely to die during police encounters than their white counterparts. On Wednesday, Vice President Kamala Harris attended Nichols' funeral in the southern city of Memphis, Tennessee.
This violent act was not in pursuit of public safety. It was not in the interest of keeping the public safe, because one must ask, was not it in the interest of keeping the public safe that Tyre Nichols would be with us here today?
Activists want more than words. They want legal change, and for police to be held legally accountable through legislation like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which stalled in Congress. Harris said the administration wants Congress to revisit the act, and leading civil rights figures agree.
It has to be federal law. Let me tell you, until police know they have skin in the game, which is why you heard them say about the George Floyd bill, you heard the sisters say about the legislation here, you must get rid of qualified immunity.
Yes.
Where
Yes.
police know
Yes.
that they can lose their house, their car, and everything else.
And some activists want the government to send resources elsewhere. Leslie Mack is communications director for the Frontline, an advocacy group. She spoke to VOA by Zoom.
President Biden just last week was talking about needing to fund the police. And I would push back and just let him know that taking funds away from violent enterprises and putting them into the hands of services that actually meet the needs of communities is not just smart from a federal level, but it's a smart play for us as human beings in this society.
VOA asked White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre what the administration is doing to combat perceptions that systemic racism is a problem in America.
The president has made it a priority in his administration to make sure that it looks like America, to make sure that we see the diversity in this administration throughout different communities. And you see that over and over again when you look at the different agencies, when you look into the White House. And this is historically the most diverse administration in history, and that matters.
On Wednesday, Nichols' family and community mourned the man, the son, the father that he was. And here's what his family wants. His stepfather, Rodney Wells.
We got a long fight ahead of us. That's right. Yeah. And we got to stay strong for it. So, justice for Tyre.
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 Anita Powell, VOA News, the White House.
Now, Pope Francis on Wednesday slammed brutal atrocities which bring shame upon all humanity in eastern DR Congo after hearing testimony from victims of the conflict in the capital, Kinshasa.
On the second day of his visit to the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Pope Francis met with victims of violence in the Central African country. Children as young as 13 recounted harrowing experiences of human rights violations, and the pontiff pointed the finger at those who have profited from the decades-long war in the DRC. The Pope had initially planned to visit Goma in the east of the country, where the notorious M23 movement has recently resumed attacks, but that was shelved for security reasons. Earlier in the day, he arrived from Mass at Kinshasa's Ndolo airport to a rapturous reception. He called for an end to the cycle of violence that has plagued the Democratic Republic of the Congo for decades and asked Congolese citizens to grant each other a great amnesty of the heart.
Let us do this, brothers and sisters. Do not be afraid to take the crucifix from your neck and out of your pockets, to take it between your hands and hold it close to your heart, in order to share the wounds with the wounds of Jesus.
Many locals had come to the airport hours in advance to make sure they didn't miss the opportunity to see the pontiff, and the significance of the visit was not lost on them.
In Goma, people are suffering. There's war there, and there's too much suffering here in Kinshasa as well. But I hope the Pope coming here gives the order for us to be at peace. There should be peace among us.
On Tuesday, the Pope had denounced Western colonialism, which he said had contributed to the strife in the DRC. Pope Francis is to spend 4 days in the Democratic Republic of the Congo before moving on to the next leg of his trip in South Sudan.
Nigeria's push to replace its paper money with newly designed currency notes has created a shortage of cash, leaving people unable to buy what they need and forcing businesses to close across the West African nation. Now, experts and businesses said this.
Queues outside petrol stations and outside banks. Residents of Lagos wait for hours to get cash or fuel, but neither are guaranteed. Ahead of the elections, Nigeria's economy is facing two major crises. The first, a cash shortage sparked by the replacement of paper notes with newly redesigned ones as the nation hopes to curb money laundering. In spite of a January 31st deadline, banks don't have enough new currency to swap for the old notes which residents are handing in. A crisis which has left people cashless and has forced businesses to close.
The ATMs are not working. Even when you walk into the bank, they will tell you they are not giving that money, that they don't have the cash, the new notes. So it seems as if this is the only bank that is dispensing money.
The deadline for handing in old notes has been pushed back to February 10th. Petrol shortages are also plaguing the country. Nigeria is Africa's biggest crude producer, yet relies on oil imports to meet local demand due to refineries operating below their capacity. Outside this petrol station, frustrated drivers get into a fight as they wait the entire day with no certainty of getting fuel.
This is what we see every day, and I have to bring my children to school here every day, and this is what happens.
Less than a month before voting day, and frustrations are growing across the country, especially since the annual inflation rose over 21% at the turn of the year.
Australia will remove the British monarch from its banknotes, replacing the late Queen Elizabeth II's image on its $5 note with a design honoring indigenous culture, the central bank said on Thursday. The decision to leave her successor, King Charles III, off the $5 note means no monarch will remain on Australia's paper currency.
Queen Elizabeth's portrait is out, but King Charles won't be replacing her. The last Australian banknote to feature a royal, the $5 note, is getting an update. The country's central bank made the decision, supported by the centre-left Labor government.
The proposal from the Reserve Bank is that the $5 note would contain a First Nations design rather than a person, a design. The monarch will still be on the coins, but the $5 note will say more about our history and our heritage and our country, and I see that as a good thing.
The choice to honour First Australians has been widely hailed by the public. In this Commonwealth country, Indigenous peoples predate British colonisation by 65,000 years.
This is Australia. Let's have some Indigenous culture on our note and let's showcase who we really are. It's not about the Commonwealth anymore.
I think that's a really great idea to connect back to Australia's history rather than the white history of Australia.
The update signals the former colony is moving further from the Crown, though Britain's monarch technically remains Australia's head of state. British royals have appeared on Australian banknotes since 1923, and this change won't be immediate. Elizabeth II should still be in circulation for a few more years while the new bills are designed and printed, a process to be carried out in consultation with Indigenous peoples.
Zimbabwe is attempting to boost its agricultural sector with support from controversial partner Belarus, which is under sanctions for supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko visited Zimbabwe this week on his first trip to sub-Saharan Africa. Let's take a look.
After years of letting the country's farmers mostly plow and seed their fields by hand, Zimbabwe's government has started large-scale mechanization of its agriculture industry, which has suffered from low productivity for years. The equipment comes from Belarus. 28-year-old farmer Mufudzi Madzorera received a tractor and is encouraging others to use agricultural machinery too.
I managed to do over 100 hectares of land. I ripped it and plowed it at my own time, at my own pace. And it's way better than hiring out. Hiring out, it consumes time, and honestly, it becomes more expensive. Owning your own tractor is cheaper because the government of Zimbabwe is then giving us an option whereby you can pay for this in a period of 5 years.
Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko visited Zimbabwe on January 3rd, bringing with him 1,000 tractors and other agriculture equipment.
Но мы готовы всегда помогать вам.
Despite the distance that separates us, we are ready to cooperate with you, to get everything you need, to give you a helping hand, anywhere, anytime, help you address all the issues, all the problems that you have.
Belarus is the subject of US and European sanctions for supporting Russia's war on Ukraine, something Zimbabwe's president addressed.
Both Belarus and Zimbabwe are serious candidates of sanctions. So it is not surprising to see victims of sanctions cooperating.
The US, the EU, and other Western nations imposed sanctions on Zimbabwe's leadership in the early 2000s following reports of election rigging and human rights abuses. Political analyst Alexander Rusero explains why he thinks Zimbabwe has turned to Belarus.
Zimbabwe is trying to modulate isolation, to modulate sanctions by going to those states that Zimbabwe perceives to be safer and better to deal with, because those kinds of dealings, they do not come with any form of conditionalities such as democracy, such as issues of human rights, etc., which normally the West insists on.
Agriculture was once Zimbabwe's economic backbone until the land reform program of late President Robert Mugabe drove experienced farmers off their land in the early 2000s and sent farm production into a downward spiral. With help from Belarus, the government hopes it can revive the sector and rejuvenate the long-struggling economy. Columbus Mavungam for VOA News, Harare, Zimbabwe.
It is exactly 30 minutes after 7. We mark the end of our news with that Belarus story. We will look at our weather focus as we head to our ad break. When we come back, we talk sports with Fabrice Msonera.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3# and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Now we're back with our sports updates. Fabrice Msonera has joined us as usual. Fabrice, a lot is happening in the sports world, but I think what's trending right now is the transfers. We saw the transfer window closing on the last day of January for the English Premier League. But I just want to focus locally before we go, overseas. A lot has happened locally with the transfers, about 6 transfers that people are talking about. We're talking the likes of Lindom Konda, Nelson Dlamini, Reagan Kakumbu. It's a lot of them. Which is the one that everyone is talking about the most?
I think just for the viewers, what a morning it is once again to talk about sports. When you talk about local transfers, we have to differentiate it from international transfers, because for us the window actually opened on the 20th of January. While those days, when you talk about international transfers, especially in England, in Europe and everywhere, it was towards the last,
it's nearing the
end of the closure. But I think for me, when you talk about, in local transfers, and I think for quite some time, we've been wondering, can we once again get an international player who is going to be out there and represent us internationally in one of the clubs, be it in the region and be it also on the African continent. And I think for me, one of those transfers is Lindom Konda, all the way from Young Buffaloes. He's well known as Sihlangu Semnigati captain, heading to Zesco, in Zambia. Zesco is one of the biggest clubs in the region. Not only in the region, it's actually in Africa. So if you look at his hard work for the past few years under the leadership of head coach Dominic Unene, former Young Buffaloes head coach, now at the national team as the head coach. He's been very good, leading as an example at the right back. He's a right back of the national team, Sihlangu Semnigati. So I think he went for trials. He went for some trials in Zambia, and I think Zesco was impressed to say, you know what, we can get this guy. And I think for me it is quite impressive. Everyone, media houses, platforms, social medias, they were rushing to talk about his salary. I'm like, why are we talking about his salary? Let's talk about his impact to local football. We're talking about 40,000 Emarangeni per month in terms of salary.
Wow.
And then I think if I'm not mistaken, we don't have a local player who is getting paid that much. I think the highest goes to 17 or 18,000. So for him to pocket or to net 40,000
and I'm wondering, even in history, have we had a player get paid that much?
We've not. There were rumors during the days of the likes of Tony, but then it wasn't that much. And the recent also, the likes of Felix and Banele Skonza, they were in South Africa, but I don't think they were hitting that amount, because when we talk about 40, we're talking about after all the deductions, everything. So it's quite a big achievement, and I think heading to AFCON qualifiers, they are back in March. Remember, Sihlangu is alongside the likes of Cape Verde, alongside Burkina Faso, and Togo. So if you have a player of this magnitude getting an international exposure, I forgot also to mention Bongos Manyovu, also who was recently in Angola. So, but his figures were around 20 to 30,000. So for me,
40 is big.
40 is big. I mean, I don't know how much you get, but I don't think you will undermine 40,000. So I think it's one of the transfers. Now, locally, between one club to another club, this is another also national team player.
No, but before we move on to that, I just want, again, on Lindom Konda, how old is this guy? Because age is an important factor into someone's prime and someone's career. I just want to know if we were to focus his trajectory.
He's in the prime of his career, because if you talk about between 29 and 32, that's the area where we can say we have a problem, obviously, local football. When it comes to age, we can't be specific. But he's in the prime of his career. It's between 29 to 22 to 23, so around there. So I think that's the moment where we should say you are no more growing to your best, but actually you are just giving us the best. So for him to get a club at this point, I think he still have probably five seasons in his body, so where he can give you good performance. So yeah, it's a good transfer.
Yeah, the whole country delights and congratulates him on this transfer. But I just want to know, when do we expect his first game? I'm sure we want Eswatini to be on the lookout for that game.
You will have also to check some of the calendar of activities in Zambia, because they have also the the National League. They have also the cup for the league. So they should, having confirmed everything within this week, which means currently he's training with the team. So this weekend there are games playing. So starting, we cannot guarantee Maswati would start depending on the coach. But being with the team, he's with the team. He should be in the 18 players that will be featured in the weekend activities. But starting the 11, it will be hard to tell, as it is the decision of the coach.
Another player from Manzini Wanderers,
I think for me, I think I watched this young man during the recent COSAFA in Durban, where when you see him training, when you see him when he's with the team, I think he's one of the youngest good player. Not
say his
really
name.
youngest.
Say his name.
And then it's Tiger. I mean, I think majority Bamati as Tiger, Manzini Wanderers supporters, Babaneswara was also clinching this signing. I think for the longest time we've been actually saying that when are we going to get some of these players being replaced? Your Tony, your Poo at Babaneswara. So having him all the way from Manzini Wanderers, young talented player, have a vision for the goal. He's got all the positions that you have as a player. He can dribble, he can pick a pass.
He was a captain with Manzini Wanderers.
Yeah, on countless occasions, yes. He would have moments where you have also, this season, I think we've seen Mlaba mostly wearing the armband, Mlaba from Mbabane Highlanders last season, but at some point you would see him also wearing the armband. So I think for me, it's a good transfer. And I think yesterday's game at Prince of Wales between Babaneswara and Tambuti, he was present there. We see later on in the visuals where he was actually got a chance to shake hands with the club president, Bishop Lukele. And so I think for me, you would also have to say, the word out there is that there were agreements between him and Manzini Wanderers, and they were not followed. So he had actually to take a jump and join Babaneswara. So
this is a loss for Manzini Wanderers.
It's a loss. It's a loss where you look at where they are at the moment as a club. They're trying to pick up their points, so losing one of their best players. But I think it's also business. So we look at in terms of the figures, the man they got, and the player as well. He knows that where he's going in terms of his career probably could be opening and everything. So what a player he is, what a transfer for him.
And Babane Swallows has been on a streak recently. They've been playing really good football.
Yeah, they've been playing really good football in as much as they couldn't clinch the first round carrot. But you would have also to say that, they're one of the clubs, whenever a season is at the beginning or it's in the middle of the season, they will also give it a try. And they're one of the clubs you can say they have a chance also to fight for the title. Not to lift it, but they have a chance to fight for the title.
Here's a guy, Reagan Kakumbu. Let's talk about
Tabangulu Kelly's, all the way from Tabangulu Kelly's heading to Moneni Pirates. Listen, Moneni Pirates is a club, I would say, when you talk about your mini tiki-taka that we saw from the likes of Person, that's your Moneni Pirates for you. So getting a player of Reagan Kakumbu, a beautiful control, he knows what it takes actually to read the game.
Perfect fit.
Perfect fit. Beautiful player.
Yeah.
And I think for Moneni, they're trying, it's a team, they're always trying to grow the image of the club. They're trying to grow the standard of the club. So a player of Kakumbu's caliber is going to be helping them so much.
Congratulations to Moneni Pirates. But here's a guy, very interesting here, because we're not talking about you, but we're talking about somebody that holds your name. Let's talk about Fabrice Mopina.
Fabrice Mopina, what a player he is. And I think, can I say this? I think for me, since the retirement of striker Mfanifut Taribo Pembe, who was very good aerial balls in terms of head. Talk about any cross, he'll give you a head. Since he retired, this is the guy.
This has been a success.
I think aerial balls, this guy, he just is something else. He's very good.
Yeah.
I think from the time Karagumbuga at national first division level, where I think at that time actually he won the player of the tournament, top goal scorer. He's been very good at Manzini Wanderers even the previous season.
Yeah.
He's been scoring goals. Currently, reports saying that without a club left Manzini Wanderers, I think what's happening with the club Manzini Wanderers is that since the announcement of the new management, there have been quite of instabilities in terms of knowing the future of the players.
Okay.
These players also, like we've said, playing football is a passion,
Yeah.
but you also have to understand that you have to make a living.
This
guy is not Swaz, he's an international player.
Yeah.
He left all the way from DRC
Yeah.
to come in the country just to make means. So whatever he tries, whatever he is trying to do is also to make a living. He loves football. He's one of the, when I talk about aerial balls in front of a striker, on his day, I think he's a good striker. So
we're talking about a guy who could potentially get a lot of, people trying to sign him right now. A lot of teams,
couple of clubs
coaching him.
Yeah. But I think for me, Wanderers should just sit on the table. They should see what they can do and maybe
back,
convince him, just to stay. Fine, it's out there that is left. But for me, I think he will leave, because if you look at other clubs that are out there, when you look at a team like Mbabane Highlanders, are they really, looking for a striker of his caliber? You've got your Musa, you've got, a couple of strikers. You also have to put a question mark. Maybe they might need him, but let's see where he heads. But for me, he's passionate, and I think he should get a club, and he deserves to play.
Yeah. Now, the last player locally, let's talk about Mandla Palmer training with Wanderers. What is the prospect with Mandla?
I think Mandla Palmer, when you talk about the golden generation of Mbabane Swallows, that was back in 2016 to 2014 up to 2017, up to 2018. Those 4 years where we made history in Africa, went to CAF Champions League as a country. When Mbabane Swallows made us proud, he was part of the golden generation. And I think there's an injury that he got in Angola. And I think when I actually talked to him personally, because I think I was there in Luanda, Angola, and I think he has not been the same since. When he returned.
What kind of injury was it?
It was just an injury, yeah. So I think he hasn't been the same, because when he returned, he was out of football for 2 seasons. From 2 seasons now, he didn't have a club because contract in Mbabane was ended. He went to Manzini Wanderers. After Manzini Wanderers, he played, I think, 1 season. He left. He went to South Africa. I think he was playing for a 2nd division in South Africa, where reports were coming out that actually he was also amongst the best players, best paid players. I think it was around 20 to 30,000. So nothing much has happened there in South Africa. So he returns now, and then reports emerged last week that he was training with Manzini Wanderers, and then some other reports also to be confirmed. And maybe one would say we'll have to visit the training ground of Mbabane Highlanders today to see if he's really training with Mbabane Highlanders, because there are also reports that he's been training with the Mbabane Highlanders. Just to confirm is that he also is a player now currently without a club, because when in football, when you say you are training with a club, sometimes it could be 2 reasons. It could be you personally as a player, you asked to train with them for fitness level. Or secondly, the club the club could be using you to see your fitness level, to see where you are as a player. And maybe if they're impressed, they could get into negotiations. So when they say that he's training with the team, it's a process. We are yet to see what's going to come as the light of this whole agreement. But for now, training with Manzini Wanderers, but some rumors also has it that he's been training with Mbabane Highlanders.
Yeah, it's very interesting transfers happening locally. Let's move on to international transfers for Greece. Chelsea has acquired a lot of players during this transfer window. A lot of money has been, spent during these transfer windows. I'm talking big money, because this is not just US dollars, Fabrice. We're talking pounds. Yeah.
They bought 9 players in January, over 9 players.
That's amazing. That's a lot of money. But also the question is, orienting these players into the system and having them to perform at their, utmost best this season, is that likely, or they have to focus on the next season?
It's not about this season. I tell you what, the club owners have got a huge vision. I tell you what, when you look at Graham Potter, the coach, he is also not in the dark what's happening at Chelsea, because he's not even into negotiations of the type of players that he wants. If you are to ask him, the type of player that he wants is not the type of player they're buying him. So he's just also receiving what they're buying. Actually, there was a trending picture on social media showing that Chelsea in training session, over 30 players when they're in training session. So you have to look at, if you buy more than 5 players in January, and UEFA actually was complaining about also the fair play issue, to say you cannot buy a player like Enzo Fernandez, you know, under the age of 24, and probably we also talk about Modric, also from you know, from Ukraine, and you give them a contract, a long contract of 6 to 7 years, and the contract has an agreement that whenever also we enter a new year or renew, there's also an increment of salary. So it's ridiculous. So for me, I think it's the bigger vision. It's they're looking at ahead next season. They're looking at ahead next season. Rumors are there that they could be looking for a new coach. Actually, beginning of this week, you know, Mourinho revealed himself that he wouldn't mind coming back. There are coaches who are seated at the moment, the likes of Pochettino. They want a job.
Let's highlight these players. Let's highlight these players, and I'm very interested on Enzo Fernandez because I heard it was a British record transfer deal. Yeah, I'm very interested on that one in particular, and then we'll highlight the rest of the other ones.
When you talk about a player like Enzo Fernandez, we watched him during the World Cup. And then I think for Argentina was one of the key players. People could not really tell if it's the Enzo Fernandez they used to watch at Benfica during the Champions League previous season and the Europa League. But when we saw him during the World Cup, it was quite, I think for me personally, I started liking him even just the first game before they even enter the knockout stages. So Enzo Fernandez coming for over £100 million from Benfica to, you know, to Chelsea, signing a contract that goes to up beyond to 2031. And I think you look at then his position. How many players that are capable of playing in his position? Something that Chelsea is going to face. And some of the players have actually started saying, you know what, with a guy like Enzo Fernandez, do we really have a future? If you are not really an English-born player and you are not an academy of the club, because you talk about players, academy of the club, you talk about the likes of Mason Mount, those are academy of the clubs. So you can tell maybe you have a future. But for a player like Pulisic all the way from the United States of America, he plays for Chelsea. In the position of you know, Enzo Fernandez, are you going to play again? Then you put a question mark there. So it's a lot to say. And it tells you that money has the power to convince anyone. Benfica, for the beginning of January, after the end of the World Cup ended on Sunday, on the 18th of December. On Monday, 19th of December, Chelsea was linked with the player. The player was saying he was happy in Portugal. Benfica was saying we're not selling the player up to the last day when they were convinced. And the player said, you know what, it's been always my dream to play in England. Then you wonder what was happening. And then you also have to touch on a player, as we touch on Enzo Fernandez, one of the greatest players that Chelsea signed. And I'm yet to see, can he cope with English football? There's also a lot to see, because we've seen sometimes January transfers becoming not really a flop per se, but not expected as you wanted a player to come. We also have to look at Mikhailo Modric from you know, Ukraine. He was playing for Shakhtar Donetsk, coming to Chelsea also. Remember, he was linked with the likes of Arsenal and also other teams in Spain. This guy now, he just played one game. It was against Chelsea, but this guy now, he's actually been recorded as one of the fastest player now in the English football. You know, you can point there Martinelli and Yosaka, but I don't know what they used to judge him in one game. But at the age where he is now, he's very, very young, being you know, bought 62 million. Fastest so far.
Faster than Mbappe? Would you?
No, I mean in the English football.
Oh, in the English
football. In the English football. So 62 million.
That's a lot of money. But yeah, Fabrice, you know, Chelsea has quite a lot of players, and you've highlighted how it is important for Chelsea going into the next seasons. You're talking about Andre Santos, Noni Madueke, Benoit. You're talking about Shakhtar Donetsk. I want us to move on to other teams as well. Arsenal, especially. I'm very much interested in Arsenal because the momentum they are playing with right now, it's quite immaculate.
Good business.
Spectacular football.
Good business.
Good business. Good football to watch. Just textbook football, Fabrice. How about these signings? Tell me about these signings. They've acquired Leandro from Brighton. Good a lot of money.
I tell you what, I think for the longest time, at some point I used to think Southampton now was the club to produce the most upcoming good players. But I think what Brighton now is doing, and they still have good players who can even right now go and buy. If you look at across the biggest clubs in the English football now, they have a player that came from Brighton. You go to Chelsea, they've got Kukulela. We can talk about also Arsenal getting a player like Trossard at £27 million at the age of 27, 28. He's at a peak of his season. He can play, if you watch Arsenal games, he can play in Martinelli position. He can also play in Saka's position. Sometimes, if he force matters, we can also play him in Odegaard position. Good business for Arsenal. Good business. And if you look at the player they wanted, it's not the player they got. They wanted Mikhailo Modric before, but they managed to get this player. He's played 2 games so far, and I think I've watched his games. He looks impressive. So he's yet to deliver at his best, but a very good and an experienced players. And I want to talk about business for Arsenal. They only spent 50 million in this transfer, where they all got 3 players. We talk about also Jorginho, where we'll touch on him later on, for an amount of close to 12 million. From Chelsea. Experience, when you talk about experience, this player in 2020-2021 season, he was one of the best players in the world, winning the Euro with Italy, winning the Champions League with Chelsea, and I think coming, but I was actually telling supporters, Arsenal fans, that I don't think he's got really a lucky number, because if you look at the players who stood at that number 20, you'll have to go to the likes of Philip Senderos from Switzerland. You'll have to go to the likes of Luis, all those players also wore the number, later on change. You also have to look at Churu. There's a player called Churu, also a number 20.
He definitely has to agree his
so that number, I'm worried it's not a good number for an Arsenal player, but he is a good player. In him, he can play both Shaka's position. He can also play, Partey's position.
So here's the question, Fabrice. Between him, Jorginho, and him, Leandro Trossard, my question is, looking at how stacked Arsenal is in terms of talent right now.
This is backup.
Do these guys, will these guys have a spot in the first 11?
They cannot really be in the first 11. I will tell you what, because the way the football now is being played these days, it's competition. You are guaranteed that you all are attending training session. But when it comes to the first lineup, the coach has to pick the best that has to deliver. And we always say in football that you are as good as your previous training session. For me, nothing changes in the 11 of Arsenal. You talk about Martinelli, you talk about Saka, and you have got Nketiah. But on a good day, if then by 60 minutes into the game, Arsenal probably is leading 3-4-0. Then why don't you take Martinelli out and put on Trossard?
Why don't you take my concern then becomes, Fabrice, as a good player, knowing how good you are. But you're joining a team where you're going to be a bench player.
But where you from, like Jorginho, I think for the better part of the season, he was not even playing. And there were concerns to say, on his position, there are 4 players now. If they are all fit, he can't play. We talk about Zakaria, Chelsea.
Listen,
he is
Fabrice,
playing.
I understand where you're coming from with that.
So he has to.
My concern is, Fabrice, as a player, I've not played enough with this team that I'm playing for. When I get signed to a different team, I'm looking for playtime. That's all that I'm trying to say.
But for Jorginho, it's not it's not really that much. You look at his age, Jorginho. He knows that there's nothing much is left. But for a player like Trossard at his peak, I mean, Trossard, you come from Brighton. If Arsenal approaches you, you can't say no. You can't turn them down.
Let's talk about Cody. Cody from PSV to Liverpool, 37 million pounds, equivalent to 781 million in Malangeni.
I still put a question mark why they need him. But I think, as Liverpool supporters, when they explain to you why they need him, you still get confused. And I think I've watched their game. I mean, they lost against Brighton in the FA Cup. They lost against Brighton in the league. They drew against Newcastle. I think he's a good player. I watched him during the World Cup. I was watching him during the Champions League. He's a very good player. Coming from the right side, he's your style of Martinelli. Coming from the wing, and then you just take a shot from in the middle. But they have a lot of players who can do that.
Good luck
Is he really a good replacement of Mane? No. Nowhere near Mane. But I think it's just maybe in terms of adding numbers, because I also have a question. If everyone is fit, if Darwin Nunez is fit, if Jota is fit, if Salah is fit, if everyone is at best, can he really play? That's a question mark. Maybe he also want to say, let's give him time and then see what he can do.
So Fabrice, we've run out of time, but in a minute, I'm giving you a minute here, even though Dr. Banana producer, 2 notable transfers, from Manchester City to Bayern Munich, we have Cancelo, and then we have from Bayern Munich to Manchester United, we have Marcel Sabitzer. Are those notable transfers?
Good notable transfers for Cancelo, I think, is very good, because we're talking about playing time. He wants playing time. He wanted playing time. That's why he left. So when you talk about also currently Bayern Munich, they have a problem with right back. We talk about the likes of Pavard. But Pavard, currently they are not really at the best of their form. Actually, some of them are even injured, so including Pavard himself. So Cancelo coming, he's guaranteed to getting to that first lineup. And we've seen what's happening at Manchester City. He was fighting for his position. So that's good. For Manchester United also to get a player like Marcel Sabitzer, I think it's also a good transfer in terms of getting numbers with the remaining games of the season. Or it's a good Felipe from Atletico to Atletico Madrid to Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, good business. When you talk about good business, talking about also getting experience, they're fighting to avoid relegation, so it should be good for them. Kylian Navas, we know him during his day at Real Madrid. He was currently playing for Paris Saint-Germain, also being loaned to Nottingham Forest. I think when you talk about one of the best goalkeepers during the time when Real Madrid won 3 Champions Leagues in a row, he was also at the peak of his moment. Jonjo Shelvey, we remember also back in the days during his time at Liverpool. Jonjo Shelvey, now he was playing for Newcastle United, has been struggling with form. He's been struggling with the first lineup, and also being loaned to Nottingham Forest. Make no mistake, Nottingham Forest, before the beginning of the season, they signed 12 players, and now they have loaned 3 players. In total, they have now 15 new players. And then last but not least, we talk about Andre Ayew, the African Ghanaian captain. Andre Ayew from...
I'll negotiate with the producers that we have another 30 minutes next week.
Yes.
It can even be on Monday. Thank you so much for joining us, Fabrice. Had an absolute great time talking to you about these transfers. Unfortunately, we couldn't really touch on the game between Swallows, the game from yesterday. But awesome. Every time having you here, it's always awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend to you and to the viewers at home.
Bye-bye, Fabrice. Let's take a quick ad break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show. To finish up.
One minute before 8 o'clock, sinivalisa lapho siliphetha lapho ehlelo namhla ekseni simakhulu ukuthi ni benasi lamuhla sesingena ke nje impela somvo sisama ukuthi ni taba nempela somvo lenhle nale phephile nale busisekile. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend and sale kahle.